I want to wish a huge congratulations to George and his wife. It was an absolute honor to be selected as the guy to marry them. I think everybody had a fantastic time. And George, it's one heck of a burnout. Guys, before we dive into the video, I want to remind you that we got our flag shirts restocked and they are ready to ship. Also, we got our Rodney poster here and this thing is flying out the door. So thank all of you guys that have ordered that. That will be shipping out later on this week. You guys are absolutely awesome, so thank you for what you're doing. It keeps us pumping out stuff like this. So I wanted to take you guys up north and check out this shop that I've had a relationship for a long time. They produce some absolutely amazing stuff. In the short amount of time that we've had this thing running, it has been absolutely everything that we wanted and more. Now that we've tested this engine, it's time to find a home with it. We got to take everything off that we don't need, and it's going to go on a little trip. The troubleshooting, diagnosis, and everything of what we're able to do with this has been absolutely awesome. We wouldn't be able to do this without the help of Speed Engineering, ICT Billet, and HP Tuning. Can't wait for the next iteration of stuff that we want to do with it. So it would be really neat to be able to have a turbo here. Try some different things out with that, but we've got some other plans. But this one has now moved on, grown up. Quick work indeed, Mr. Ryan. We're gonna swap over to that guy right there. This has got a deeper pan. Very simple, very clean. Only one cut wire, and we can put it all back together for the next one. Guys, we were on the way up north, and we just went through a whole bunch of storms. There was like multiple accidents. We were like 3 accidents or something. Pretty wild. I want to share a little tip here with you. You know, sometimes when you don't have something to heat up your brisket. I think it's probably just about right now. Oh, that looks much better. Oh yeah, look at the juice running. We need a little bit more. We gotta go though. We got our old faithful Duramax. Not missing the beat. Yeah, 10,000 pounds per mount. This thing is doing absolutely awesome. Check this out. It's about 85 in Florida, so between 35 to 40 degrees difference. Nice and good change here. Right now we're driving up to New Jersey to meet a friend of mine, Steven Dork from LOG. I've been working with Steven for probably about 6 or 7 years, and I've probably tuned at least 40 or 50 cars that he's built. So he specializes in Nissan conversions. Now the other thing that I wanted to mention is that we had sold our old 350Z. We'd done everything that we really wanted to do with the car. It was really just a secondary backup car for my kids to drift. Now we want to go with something that is going to be a much better platform to do much bigger things with it. So last year when we went to LS Fest, I tried to drift Uncle Sam. I did not very good with it. It was honestly a very humbling experience. This year, I want to be able to build something that was going to be a super fast conversion that's also going to be very powerful, be able to deliver everything that we'd be able to need in order to can be really competitive. Well, we made it. Got a nice little crunch dump bumper to show for it. And this is Steven from LJ.
Hey, how's it going?
I've got beard envy. I haven't seen him in like all last year and stuff.
Yeah, it's been. This is only since October.
Oh man, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Beard inferior.
So what do we have here?
All right, so this is a 5.3. We got heads and cam and LS2 intake. This is on our engine test stand. Yeah, so I mean, I got a good working tune already, pretty much ready to go for it. You guys got to check out this facility and all the stuff that he's got. He's so organized. I'm actually really kind of jealous. This is pretty awesome. And so you guys have done a swap at LS. How long was it?
We drove the car down from Jersey
With the Nissan
with
motor.
the Nissan motor in it. Started the swap 9 o'clock Friday morning. Turned the key with the LS to start at 4:30 Friday afternoon, and was charging the AC Saturday morning at 11, and drove it back to Jersey with the LS in it.
Heck yeah.
So,
Dude, that's some engineering right there. I like that. That's my style in engineering. The patch to the garbage.
that's what happens when you throw a safe in your garbage can.
All right, I'm pretty jealous here. This is definitely cooler than the S10 by far. All right, so Steven made the adapter for what we had run on our S10, and he had been steady working on this thing. We've had a whole bunch of roadblocks, but dude, this thing looks awesome. You sent me a quick little video. I'm going to throw that in there.
Yeah.
You're ripping it up and down the road the first time that you had this thing up and running. Seeing it in person is totally different. All right, so you went the LS route, and you're getting ready to go the LT route on another project here. But this is also manual trans, all-wheel drive, you know, everything that we wanted to do with the S10. And we were supposed to try and set something up to race and all that.
You mean LS Fest this year? I don't know.
Gosh, dude, it is so wide and
Yeah,
awesome.
so this is the setup that you broke 3 times.
Yeah.
20 by 12 wheels with 325, 30, 20 tires on them. Oil cooler and intercooler. The water cooler for the intercooler. Got the fuel surge tank. So that way we're keeping the stock fuel tank, but it feeds that radium fuel surge tank. That's a triple pump setup. We've only got 2 pumps in it right now, but we can add one later if we need.
You're managing this on a Haltech right now.
Yeah, it's got an Elite 2500 on it, which is basically what you need to run if you still want to keep drive by wire.
Dude, that looks so good though. Oh my gosh.
Still
So
air
clean.
conditioning, man.
Nice. Yeah, I won't have air conditioning.
I'm building it for something a little different than you build your truck for, obviously. You know, I want to drive this on the street. I want to take this on my hot rod power tour.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of cruising around for a lot of miles.
Yeah, that came out so nice. And how big are the turbos?
They're BorgWarner S252s, so they're 200 series for the best response possible. So I'm not going for big numbers, but I want a broad power band because I want to autocross this. So it should have like full boost at between 2,000 and 2,500 RPM.
George's truck is very similar to that.
Yeah.
You know, really quick response.
It's a 6-liter, so it was a L77 out of a Caprice. It's got forged rods and pistons, TSP heads, Texas Speed cam. They're ported stock heads. They're not an aftermarket casting, but TSP did their CNC deal on it. It's their new intake manifold with the intercooler built in and all.
Yeah, it looks fantastic.
It's funny, it almost fit under the hood. It's so close. I'm a little disappointed that I had to cut it, but it also looks cool. So
It does look cool, yeah. Dang, shorty, dang.
hard plumbed everything vacuum related.
Looks fantastic, man.
Thanks.
Lots of time and detail into that for sure.
C&R does all of our radiators for all of our swaps. So I talked to their engineering team. They're like, we're just starting to use these fans, and the Haltech can control like the PWM signal. So it's variable speed fan control, which works out really well.
And if you guys don't know the term, that's pulse width modulated.
CNC machine.
Oh yeah, I like
This one's a very old school CNC machine. I have to load my programs on with
oh man,
3.5-inch floppy disks.
Nice.
So if you really want to date yourself, but it works, man. And I can do all my prototypes here. And then once I machine something, verify that it fits. I do an engineering drawing up, and I have machine shops like around the U.S. that actually make the production parts for me.
How many different parts and products do you guys make? And you have it for all sorts of different Nissans. So
Yeah.
300Z.
300Z, 240SX, 350Z, G35, 370Z, G37, FX35 SUVs, Frontier pickups, Xteras, Pathfinders, Titans, Armadas.
Wow.
So
That's way more than I thought.
Yeah.
And LS, and you do some Nissan motor swap stuff too.
Yeah, I do a little bit. I started breaking out like more transmission adapters for other Nissan engines, and then Nissan RB to 350Z trans adapter because a lot of guys were asking for that. And then I just started making adapters to put GM transmissions behind the Nissan V6s because these guys that are running boosted 350Zs and 370Zs that are making a bunch of power with autos, the factory transmission, like it can't hold the power. There's only one or two companies in the country that build the transmissions, and even then it's still problematic. So these guys that are building drag cars, you know, they want to put power glides or turbo 400s or 408s behind them. So I made an adapter that allows you to bolt any GM transmission behind one of those motors. It's the adapter plate, a billet flex plate, and a custom torque converter. Flex plate's cool because you can actually use it with stock trans too. So it's basically a stock replacement part. And then the torque converters are custom built with the correct mounting pattern and pilot to mate to the Nissan flex plate, if that makes sense. So it's like GM on the trans side, Nissan on the flex plate side. Just released it 2 months ago, so the guys are putting the cars together. But,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it's solving problems for guys. I had one guy that bought one that put it in like a off-road, like trophy truck style truck that had a Nissan powertrain.
So one of the main needs of what Steven is able to do is the fact that the CDO trainees, and people say CDO9 and they go all the way up to CDO-A or something like that now. This is a obtainable trans that is less expensive. How much are they new?
A brand new CDO9 will cost you like $1,700 shipped.
Whereas the T56 stuff is really, really hard to come by. I mean, I think you're going to pay double that for a T56. Whatever you might decide to do, the CDO tranny is, I mean, it'll take a lot of torque too, right?
There's a lot of arguments online, you know, how much power will they take? And I think a lot of that depends on application. You know, if you're drag racing it with real sticky tires versus drifting or a street car. But I generally tell customers the 350Z CD transmission, 700-800 wheel in almost any use.
Yeah.
And then if it's a street car that you're just doing highway rips, I've seen guys put 1,200 horsepower through them. You can buy a brand new transmission and the adapter, which comes with a flywheel and starter for less money than just a Magnum trans. And if you bought a Magnum trans, you've still got to buy a bell, a flywheel, a starter, and all that stuff to make it work. So you come out way ahead. The only downside that people will make about the CD transmissions is the gearing. They're short gearing. You basically just want to run a taller ratio, which is actually a good thing as well because taller ratios have larger pinion gears, which are stronger for high horsepower applications than short ratios.
Obviously, you can tell he talks really nerdy with Nissan stuff. He kind of talks like that about how I talk about, you know, all the different GM stuff. But wow, yeah. And lots of knowledge to be had here. We got a lot of stuff to tackle, and we're going to start getting on that. All right, so I'm really excited to show you guys this car right here. This has been with Steven for a long time here. This is a car that he did a lot of his R&D on. And he's like, dude, just come and get this car here. And I was like, well, I got a motor for it. And he's like, all right, let's do this. So this is the car that we're going to swap. We're going to have this thing do some pretty awesome stuff. So this thing's been sitting a little bit, had a little bit of a front end damage. Not much, nothing really crazy. Honestly, a pretty clean car. Still got full interior. Some of the airbags have been deployed. This thing is going to be sick. All right, so we got a couple things done. We got your balancer on there and pulled off the oil pan, drained the oil. Good. Made me cry a little bit, you know. I was like, sorry. 1 hour of used oil, you know.
I'll stock you some oil, Jeremy.
I'm that cheap. However, this part is a work of art.
All LOJ oil pans are not just an oil pan. It's oil pan, gasket, pickup, dipstick, hardware, everything you need to install. Like supply everything you need to install or one of these oil pans off the motor.
I got a feeling that's going to be a reoccurring thing that we say over and over again.
Yeah. This is our 370Z G37 swap oil pan. And you can see it's welded steel construction. One of the things we do, a lot of oil pan companies build oil pans using these stamped non-sump areas and then weld sumps on. One of the things we do is we weld on a reinforcement rail.
Ah, yes.
To strengthen the flange so you get a better gasket seal. Sumps hanging way off the front. Inside the pan is we welded in these oil diverters. Crankshaft is spinning in the motor. There's a natural windage action inside the crankcase. And what these diverters do is actually force the oil back to the sump. Since it's front sump, if you're hard acceleration, you want to keep the oil in the front of the pan. So That helps force the oil up to the front. Trapdoor baffle inside to keep the oil at the pickup, and an anti-slosh baffle to keep the oil in the sump. So all of that was in an effort to make engine oiling not an issue, and we employ these tactics in the 350 pans and the 370 pans. More capacity to limit the chance of oil starvation. Dash 10AN fittings on the oil filter relocation. Dipstick port here, and we include a plug for plugging the factory hole in the block. Let's get this thing installed so we can put this thing in the car.
All right. Right.
Because we're running a CDO9 transmission, and CDO9s have a smaller diameter bell housing than like a T56, we have to run a smaller flywheel to fit in there. And a smaller flywheel means a smaller ring gear. Smaller ring gear means the starter needs to be closer to the motor. So what we end up doing is, instead of attaching the starter to the GM mount locations, it's actually bolted to the factory Nissan starter mount locations through the bell housing. So 2 bolts will come through the bell, through these holes into the starter, which centers on this bore. And then we had to cut this boss, looks just like this one here, off the side of the block to just give enough clearance for the starter to tuck up closer to the motor. Plug in for the factory dipstick hole, and then the pan has a dipstick port on it. The dipstick is included. We'll put that in after the motor's in the car.
All right, so we got that guy on there, and that is absolutely beautiful. It's a little guy.
Yeah.
Really nice throttle response, ultra lightweight. That's going to be exactly what we want.
With all the LOJ adapters, we have clutch options. Basically, a standard adapter kit would come with a flywheel that would accept any single disc 350Z clutch. And we have options for twin disc clutches as well. Part of the thing that people don't realize, and I get a lot of calls about this, is like, oh, I have a so-and-so brand twin disc clutch, can I use it with your flywheel? And the short answer is no, and then people don't understand why. But when a company makes an aftermarket flywheel for a stock application, like for a 350Z single disc clutch replacement, they make their flywheel to fit the standard Nissan pressure plate bolt pattern. And vice versa, when somebody makes an aftermarket clutch for a 350Z, they make that clutch to fit that flywheel. But when companies design twin disc or triple disc clutches, this whole bolt pattern becomes proprietary. So the flywheel itself is different for a multi-disc than a single disc. When you order an adapter from me, if you know in the future you're going to need a multi-disc clutch, it makes way more sense economically to get the twin disc right from the get-go, because if you want to change later, you have to change flywheels from a single disc flywheel to a twin disc flywheel. Whereas if you order it right from the get-go, save yourself that money of spending $500-600 to buy a flywheel a second time. And that's one of the reasons why we only use Clutchmaster's multi-disc clutches, because we've had the best success with them. They're our flywheel supplier, so they make the flywheels to work with their multi-disc clutches. This is a 8.5-inch twin disc. We also offer a 10-inch twin disc, lower moment of inertia, get nerdy again. Yeah. So it spins up faster. The 10-inch will have better drivability, but we can build these twin discs to handle 2,000 horsepower if you have to.
I definitely remember driving Zondaras. It was super, super responsive. That's going to be really fun.
Sure.
All right, well, we got everything just about ready to go in. Had a little bit of a hiccup getting this guy on here, and you're like, dude, I've never, ever had that much problems, but hey,
Twin disc life.
All right, so you said donuts in the cul-de-sac, open headers.
Donuts in the cul-de-sac, open headers, for sure.
We're going to make it happen. Yeah. Well, guys, we are pretty much ending day 1 right now. Got the trans on, had a little bit of a hiccups, but we're really making some great progress. We're going to be throwing this thing in here in a couple minutes. Coming up in the next video, but I'm super stoked with this, man. The whole deal with the conversion is going pretty much exactly the way that you said.
That's the way it's supposed to happen, man.
Yeah. So, guys, you can also check out LOJ at lojkits.com if you guys are interested in doing any sort of kits or swap or anything like that for anything Nissan LS.
Nissan, you name it, yeah.
And you've got a new pet project coming up here with the R35. Okay, in other words, the GTR motor. You're going to be doing that, and you're going to be putting that in a 240 or something?
72 240Z.
Oh, that's going to be sick.
We designed an adapter to put a CDO9 behind that, so that's what's on it. It's actually the 370Z trans, so the JK, but that's what's going in that, and that's going to be a ripper, man. That thing's going to be awesome.
And again, this thing is absolutely amazing. He's got a lot of this build and some other stuff. If you guys are interested in checking any of that stuff out, look him up, LOJ Kits or LOJ Conversions on Instagram. All right, that's it. Thank you guys for watching. God bless you. We will see you next episode.